Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program From the Desk of the Editor. This is a program we like to bring to give an opportunity for interaction and exchange with you, our readers and listeners. The Voice and Viewpoint has been San Diego's only and oldest African American publication of continuous circulation. And we are in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, unincorporated areas, online distribution at churches, retail outlets, newsstands. And so it's pretty hard not to find us because we put the entire paper online in addition to making it available in print. The theme or the logo has always said that a people without a voice cannot be heard, and that we serve San Diego's African and African American populations in particular. But our readership is, and this is evidenced by our legal section, which has people from all walks of life and communities in San Diego. And so we're excited today to bring you this program. I like to think of it as an opportunity to talk with you and to have you raise questions, make comments. I'm trying to gear up to prepare to do a series of sessions on a constitution and voting. And I am focusing on voter registration and voter participation from now until November. I'm focusing on it editorially. I'm focusing on it in every possible way I can, because in spite of the things that are happening to us, there's still too many of us that are not registered to vote and have no plans to do so. I would like you to know that you may reach us as we're here in studio with Dr. Leonard Thompson III. Dr. Thompson is here, and we are going to let you know that you can reach us either at godradio1.com, or you can reach us at 858-251-6111, where we will hear you and take your question or concern. And Dr. Thompson is going to share with you all of the social media platforms that we are streaming on as well, and the fact that if you miss this program, you can catch it later.
Yes. Dr. Warren, we are definitely on Facebook, both on the GOD radio platform, the Voice and Viewpoint platform, personal pages, as well as on streaming on demand. We're also on IG and also YouTube. We're on the app, as well as we are on a lot of other platforms. So there's many ways that you can see it, hear it, and dialogue with us. Tonight, we're going to ask that you would type in the feed your questions. Let's engage. Let's be a part of this whole entire conversation.
Well, we have some things, we always seem to focus nationally because we're so impacted by what happens nationally, especially as long as we have this president who makes no bones about the fact that he's on a vendetta approach, trying to get even with people, still hallucinating over the 2020 election, thinking that he won. We come in a week that we've had the funeral of Lindsey Graham, body laid in state in the Capitol, then the service in the Washington Cathedral. The president spoke at the cathedral. Graham's sister has taken his place in the Senate. It's all about holding on to those 50 seats. And it's all about the fact that we are getting closer and closer to the midterm. Trump's people are in panic mode. What is not clear is how some of these people who are up for re-election continue to drink the Kool-Aid, even though the Kool-Aid is poison in terms of their defeat. And Trump doesn't seem to care about that, because I think that Donald Trump left a long time ago. I think he's just there. He's dealing with whatever comes to mind, whenever it comes to mind. And this is the first time I can ever remember a president not having a domestic agenda, not really concerned about people in terms of suffering and what's happening. He's canceled and dismantled as many things as he possibly could. He's out to erase Black people and people of color from textbooks, from monuments, from museums, from every place he possibly can. And there is a ripple effect from that attitude of people, even though his support base is down to about 28 to 30%. Those people are so faithful and fanatical and MAGA with him. You know, I guess it shouldn't be MAGA, it should be MAGWA, Make America White Again, because that's really the agenda, not great, but white. America has always been great. And they were afraid to say make it white again. So they tried to use great as a synonym with white. But we know exactly what this is all about. We've reached a point where I'm not really blaming the people who were doing things to us as much as I'm blaming us for sitting still and letting it happen. Okay, that's where the real problem is, that we have more options than we've ever had in history, and we're just letting people do all kinds of stuff to us, and we're just rolling over. And we cannot assume that life is going to go back to the way it was, however that was. You know, when people talk about the good old days in the past, many times they forget that they weren't all that good when they were living them. But in retrospect, they're good comparison to where we are now. And so that makes a tremendous difference. But we want to talk about a number of things this evening. And I'm very concerned with what's happening, that the president is trying to use all the muscle that he can to get the SAFE Act passed so he can get further toehold and involvement with the elections, because he's no longer worried about winning the election in terms of influencing people so that they favorably vote. His whole idea is, the hell with whether or not they like me. The real issue now is, how do I take it? And if I can take it, I don't care whether they like it. I don't care how they feel about it. It's a handful of people that are benefiting. And we got these people around him like Stephen Miller, who are very sick folk who hate mankind. And Trump is letting all of this stuff go down. And so, Dr. Thompson, there's a lot on the plate. I'm going to hold back on some of it as we go forward. But, you know, we had BB in town this week for the funeral, and Zelensky was here as well, because Graham had just been over there before he passed. And it's just very significant that we have Iran now launching attacks against us, and the president's still selling wolf tickets. You know, well, back in the day on the street, wolf tickets, you know, we have to tell people what wolf tickets are. They don't know. You know.
Yeah, what we're saying is that he continues to act like nothing's going on, but everything is happening. So he sees this basically fronting and faking the funk, if you will.
Yeah.
So Dr. Warren, let's go ahead and let's break it down. I'd like to go and let's visit the war. I know that Donald Trump in both his elections complained about unnecessary wars, getting American and wars, and that he would have them fixed immediately. Well, he's been in office now almost over 2 years right now, could we say? And he has gotten us into several major conflicts. You know, one was like child's play when he was messing with Venezuela, because he knew that they really couldn't do nothing to stop him. You know, so that was his tester of the things that he had to play with. But then he's looking over there at Ukraine and his buddy over there in Russia. And he said, I can negotiate, I can get it done. It's been 4+ years, he still haven't gotten it done. And
5 years, really.
Yeah, 5 years. And now we're looking at the debacle in Iran that was supposed to be, 4 to 5 weeks. That now we're into 4 to 5 months, almost 6 months. And yet and still, it seems like we crippled them. We did this, we did that. But yet and still, they seem to keep getting back up and hitting us and hitting us and hitting us. I think the reality comes in is that Donald Trump does not know what he is doing. And we as American citizens have to begin to ask ourselves, are we in undue conflicts that we should never be involved in? And you can be, and I have nothing against Israel, but again, he has involved us, and now he said, well, there will be no ground troops, and now he's now come back to say we're probably going to have ground troops. So America is, and America especially, but African Americans, people of color, we need to wake up, because the first ones that will go will be us.
Well, we it's kind of difficult to make us the first ones that by ourselves now because we don't have those segregated units that we can call up. You got the salt and pepper in the same shaker, and so that's one of the issues here. But the Iran situation is very significant because never before, well, I'm sure they have, but never have it been exposed that uh, the uh, the Department of Defense wants to play with the statistics in terms of what's a death in terms of war, and want to say that there was only 14 people that died in the conflict and not 18. And it reminded me of the Korean conflict because when we were fighting in Korea, we never did have a war declared. Uh, we just went over there and we got involved on the 38th parallel and Eisenhower. We got troops in there and we drew the lines and the boundaries, and we had people die. And then it was a question of whether or not America owed those family death benefits as if they had died in war, because technically a war had not been declared.
Mhm.
Okay. And so those are the kind of things that make us look bad because we got people being sent to death who have no choice but to go or to be court-martialed or executed. Um, and they're all our young people. You look at those 18 people we've lost so far, at least probably 14 of them are just really young folks who had their lives ahead of them. If you look at on the Midway, if you ever visit the Midway and you walk among the ships that are there on on the plane, I mean the planes on the ship, you will see all of these pictures and markup of these really teenagers that were fighting the war for us, and so we're losing so much of the best and the brightest in this conflict. All right, but it will be a critical mistake to try and put ground troops in Iran. Iran has over 400,000 soldiers that it can put in the field. Okay, it's not a small country. America, if it mobilized everybody it has, reserves, National Guard, and active duty, would be hard pressed to get 400,000 people in service, period. We no longer had a draft. We got volunteers. We have National Guards that have limits in terms of you can call people up, but then families and jobs. And it's a lot of moving parts in this that are not being dealt with. And so that's one of the big issues.
And well, one of the things I think, Dr. Warren, is I believe that we could galvanize a very strong army if they really believed in why they were going to war. I don't believe that anyone believes that the war that we are in right now has anything to do with the safety of America. They think it's dealing with money, it's dealing with oil, and it's basically he's just power tripping, and saying, if I don't get my way, I'm going to blow you up.
Well, it is, first of all, there are no circumstances under which anybody should be sent over there to lose and put in harm's way. That just can't, there's no compelling reason to do any of that. Okay. We had a whole different ball game when we were in Korea in terms of the 38th parallel and the division and the war on communism and all of the stuff that was going on. We were misdirected when we went into Vietnam, thinking that we were going to go in there and just make that thing work right. And we got our butts kicked. We lost a whole bunch of people's lives in terms of that. So the only real conflict that we were in where we stepped up and made a difference in terms of world peace was World War II in terms of it. This president has done an embargo on Cuba, and the people there are suffering. They're not getting gas, food, medicine. All these things are going on. And Cuba is a very interesting place because it's a large island, and we already have part of the island with Guantanamo Bay. It's where we were housing all of the criminals, if we call them war criminals or terrorists, because we couldn't torture them on American soil. But if we could put them in some place that wasn't on our soil, we could keep them without imposing due process, hearings, laws. And so we went through a long thing, and we still got a couple of people there waiting for trial after 20 some years of going through this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're not paying attention. And the money that was spent in the first 2 days or the few days is no longer than the week in this Iranian conflict that was fabricated. That was enough to have covered health care, daycare, SNAP program, housing, all kinds of benefits. And it turns out these were benefits that were cut not because America was in an economic crisis and needed to redirect funds to help balance what we were doing, but these were funds that were cut just because of the insanity of the president. A president who's made $2 billion grifting us during these first 2 years of this administration. A president who couldn't wait for Boeing to finish doing the new Air Force Ones that were on order, and took a gift from Qatar and spent money that he didn't have authority to spend to refurbish this plane that still couldn't measure up to our standards. A president who decided that he's going to tear down the East Wing and rebuild, and it just all kinds of things with no limits on the purse strings, the amount of money that was forced on us through the passage of the Homeland Security legislation because of all the things that were mixed into their Secret Service and CIA and all of these things makes no sense. So,
well, Dr. Warren, I think that, his whole thing about make America great again, I really think that it should be the master plan of how to dismantle a nation, because not only are they dismantling us on a security level, they're dismantling us on a financial level, but I think more than anything else, they're literally making us more vulnerable. And I think this is the most vulnerability, and that is to our health. Being out of the World Health Organization, making up all these different rules. We went from being a country that had no measles, was zero, an epidemic, pandemic, whatever they want to call it, was over. And now we have lost that status because we have measles outbreaks all over. And there seems to be no worry, no concern that people are getting sick with hysteria and all these different things. And you have a Secretary of Health that doesn't even look healthy himself.
Well, he was never healthy, and he's got mental problems too, just like the president. So, the point I started to make earlier is when I say that we are at fault. The Constitution is very unique. And one of the amendments, I think it's the 25th Amendment to the Constitution, has a provision for declaring the president incompetent and removing him from office. And so we don't have to wait with this insanity for 2 more years. And we have this system because if you look at other countries, monarchies, and you look at like Great Britain or where they have the queen, but they have prime ministers, or even in Israel, where they can have special or call for special elections. The one thing that with Israel's case that Netanyahu Bibi needs is he needs to keep a war going, because as long as he has a war going, even though he's been declared a war criminal by the International Criminal Court, The Hague, if he's got a war going, they can't get him if he doesn't go to certain places. And that's why recently the issue came up when he was coming to America for Graham's funeral. It was a question of whether or not he's going to try to go to the UN, because Mandami was already exploring whether or not he was going to arrest him as a war criminal. And so he's only traveling those places where he knows he's going to be safe. The same thing for Putin. And he's declared a war criminal as well. So all of this is important. And probably the one reason that Trump has not bombed Iran like he started to was because the people around him probably started telling him about how if his actions are not consistent with the Geneva Convention in terms of war activity, he will be held as a war criminal, and he will be subject to all of this because he really wants to go in and blow up the bridges, the power plants, and the electrical grid and everything, and put them back in the dark ages. And I believe if they keep playing with what they're doing, that it's going to happen. People in America, as much as we are concerned about this president and his mental health, the more we see our people die and we have the foolishness over the Straits of Hormuz, the more people are going to move in the direction of, look, let's just blow the hell out of them and get it over with. Okay. And then we ain't got to worry about whether or not they're going to get a nuclear weapon.
Well, one of the things that I'm always asking is about, I consider things simple solution. I know the strait is a big strait and a lot of area to cover, but my question is, we got all that military there. We cannot create a blockade to have ships be able to come through without them being attacked with the little Houthis, with the little small boats and everything else. Is not our technology strong enough to combat them? Are we saying that the little Houthi rebels are so clever that they outsmart, quote unquote, the greatest military in the world?
Well, here's the problem, and you got to qualify that greatness. A lot of what the Iranians are doing is drone attacks in terms of ships. And right now, the leading country in the world with the most sophisticated drone doing the most damage in battle is Ukraine. Ukraine has mastered this thing, and they're striking St. Petersburg. They're striking right in the heart of Russia in a war that was supposed to be over in a few weeks and is in its fifth year now. And and we do not have the drone technology that Ukraine has, would you believe? And we don't know how much of the technology Iran has. And so this is what happens when we just jump into things. You don't listen to we have a Joint Chiefs of Staff for a reason, made up of the heads of all four of our military divisions: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Four-star generals at the top, selecting from among themselves the one to lead the whole group, to have the ear of the president as the commander-in-chief. All of this is by design that we do this. And, you got a Secretary of Defense there who is as crazy as the president. And so, I mean, how are you going to go after someone like Senator Kelly, who is a decorated naval officer, and you're going to go after him because he's reminding people that you don't have to follow illegal orders. Mm-hmm. And so while all of that's taking place, meanwhile, back here at the ranch, we're all suffering. Prices are up, gas is going back up, rents are up, food prices are just going up everywhere you turn. Income is diminishing in terms of what people are doing. Mm-hmm. And we, as Black folks in particular, are targeted because, as my late friend Maynard Jackson, the mayor of Atlanta, used to say, that when white folks catch a cold, Black people catch pneumonia. And so we have never been equal. So we've been left behind. And so I don't want to continue to talk about the bad, but I want us to be reminded that we can do something about what we can do. So I'm gonna move forward with the somethings that we can do. Okay, and this is going to be important. The first thing we can do is start paying attention to what's going on in the world. 50 years ago, before the internet, or even 60, 70 years ago, working Black people in particular, I remember in the South where I was growing up, they read the newspaper every day. It's not that the paper was perhaps right. I know in my little town in Henderson, North Carolina, there was a guy who came on for years every day at 5 o'clock, and he read the paper to the people who were listening. You got to know his voice. And part of that was there were so many people who could not read or write, but they were still interested in what was happening. And part of the reason they were interested, Dr. Thompson, is because their sons were subject to the draft when we turned 18. It wasn't, do we go, well, I don't know if I'm going to, you went down to the draft board, you signed up, and you did all the stuff that you were supposed to. We abolished the draft, which I believe we should bring back full force, and we should eliminate all of the little the little perky ways that wealthy kids got out of it. You know, their parents on the draft board of getting a 4F so they can't serve. I mean, that was Bush. Remember, Bush went into the Air Force and he was acting like he was some big military hero, wearing a jacket and on the flight deck here in San Diego. We won this conflict that we had and stuff. It was no such thing. So we need to pay attention to what's going on. That's first and foremost. Right now, here in the state of California, and I hope people do this in every state, we need to pay attention that we have an election coming up in less than 4 months. That we got a guy named Hilton, who's a Republican, who's trying to become governor of the state, and he is a Donald Trumper, if there ever was one. It still got the British accent. Nothing against the Brits, but he's running against Becerra, who has been Attorney General, Member of Congress, Secretary of Health, Education, and HHS Health, and Health and Welfare, not Health Education. That was the old HEW, but Health and Welfare. And so we got all of these things happening, and we are still going about business as usual, too many of us, in terms of how we're spending our money and what we're doing. I just saw something that was very disturbing the other day, where people have, first of all, California failed to block investors out of New York from buying up homes that are in foreclosure sitting on the market. So now the investors become the slum landlords because they are not being stopped. I remember in Tennessee about 6 years ago, they were concerned about the same issue. And I remember being there in Memphis when the state passed a law that blocked investors from buying houses that were available in terms of how many they could buy and when they could buy, and to make sure that first-time home buyers had an opportunity to still buy something. Mm-hmm. They can't do that here in California because of how the prices are going up and away. Okay. And so we just got so much to look at. We were enjoying moving into veggies, and then we find out that the Taylor Farms is in Mexico, and they had a false positive about the impact on veggies, and so we're not eating as well as we should. But Black folks, I keep saying, if we stayed away from KFC, Burger King, Taco Bell, and Popeyes, and all of these places that just keep raising their prices and milking us, it would make a difference. We looked at some of the companies that have gone and joined Trump's DEI brigade. Why are we still doing business with them? Okay. Why? I mean, because it's not like we must have Cokes or Pepsis or cigarettes or beer or chips. I mean, we need to do our homework. Okay, so.
Yeah, and Dr. Warren, I'm going to agree with you 100%. The reality is that we, at this point, as a solution, we're going to have to recalibrate how we approach life and how we approach if we're expecting people to honor us, respect us, or even deal with us fairly. And that is simply if I abuse you, and this is for those people that understand abuse, if I abuse you and you continue to come back and I still abuse you, then I won't change. I will still be the abuser. But the only time that people will change, and Dr. Warren, you said there's three. What are the three that will cause change?
Well, the three things that cause change would be lost profits,
Yep.
number one, bad publicity, number two, and votes cast against the interests of the people who are perpetrating the wrong against us.
And that's right there, the solid game plan. When you say, a vote against their interests, you know what I'm saying? When you lost profits, because we're a capitalistic society. So when we really look at bringing about change, we have to look at it from the thing that what will get people's attention. Number one, if I'm not making money in a capitalistic society, and I know that what I've done has you have responded to me by saying, I'm not going to give you my money. I'm going to keep it and give it to someone else. Now we got their attention.
Well, just look at what happened with Elon Musk. Okay, he had Doge and he was going crazy with it, and he was boasting the richest man in the world. But when people started pulling back from his products and everything, and the stock market changed on him, the shareholders spoke up, and wasn't long before he was out of there and back at doing what he was supposed to do, and then now they make him a trillionaire in a whole bit. Okay, so we need to pay attention. And then there's all this discussion about building generational wealth.
Before we go that, Doc, can I go back to saying it's amazing how we are allowing people that are not American raised, born, or even naturalized, if you will, to come into our country and literally make them trillionaires and let them run things without even have a true sense of the best interest for our country, where this Donald Trump is consistently opening the doors to people that don't have our best interest, but he thinks only has his interest. As an American president, you should be looking for people that are going to have the best interest of the United States of America. And that means all the states, everybody, and not just a faithful few and the rich.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Thompson. That's the way it should be, that we should be concerned. And unfortunately, most of us aren't still paying attention. We're still just kind of going about what we do. I have a big problem here. My problem is we celebrated 250 years. Our Constitution is one of the documents that brought us to this point. Our Declaration of Independence, our profession of God and in God we trust. All of these things that were important to the founding fathers that we have gotten away from. I am still concerned that people of color are being murdered by ICE. That is the Immigration Custom Enforcement people that Trump has given free hand to. No person should be killed because they didn't stop their car when an ICE person suggested that they should. No person should be killed by police because, well, I thought your car was stolen, so we're going to go. How many times do we have to see that scenario played out? We saw it played out in Minnesota, even after George Floyd, when in another small community there, a white policewoman stopped a black motorist, supposedly saying he had a taillight out, and ended up shooting him and killing him because later she said at trial she thought she was reaching for her taser instead of her pistol. And we all know, if we've watched police officers, that tasers are different color. They're usually yellow or whatever, but they stand out that they're non-lethal weapons that people have at their disposal. And so we should be reacting as we did in the past. We did not get the Civil Rights Act of 64 or the Voting Rights Act of 65 by sitting on the sidelines. We were demonstrating and protesting and making it be known. One of the good things I see that the whole indivisible group that launched the No King's Day movement has brought million people to protests and demonstrations. And I'm concerned that in the midst of that, Black people in particular have not responded. A lot of talking about, well, we don't like the way they did for Black Lives Matter. You know what? We are all in the same boat with this situation, folks. And we have this thing now with the attack on the Haitians. Well, the Voice and Viewpoint.
Well, hold on. Let's break that. I really want you to talk about the Haitians totally because of the total unfair, literally, I don't even know what to call it other than unconstitutional, unfair, and this downright shameful.
Well, the Haitians have given me conflict over the past 25 or 30 years.
Mhm.
And on the one hand, as I look back some 30 years ago, I remember maybe 40, when Papa Doc was still in control there and people were fleeing, and Haitians were leaving the islands even after him. We put Aristide in as president. He was a priest, supposedly, but he was a puppet for America. And so people were getting on inner tubes and things trying to make it to America. And the U.S. Coast Guard was intercepting them and sending them back to Haiti. At the same time, people from Cuba were being let out of jails and put on small boats, and they were coming toward America. And the Coast Guard picked them up and put them in detention camps in Florida. And so the Cuban immigrant, would be immigrant people are in camps, living well, watching the soaps every day. And it was a while before real people realized that the reason they were watching the daily soaps as the world turns sets for for tomorrow and a brighter day, they were watching those programs because they were using them to learn English. And meanwhile, the Haitians were being shipped back. And so uh, here we go again after this big quake that took place, and we are granted this emergency asylum scenario, which was a humane thing that we have done for people. We also did it for Ukraine when the war broke out, and the people from Ukraine ended up, maybe because they were white, all of them
Don't
were
forget
stacked
South
up
Africa too.
at the and they was well, I'm gonna get to South Africa. South Africa was different, but they came later. But Ukraine, they were allowed in the country ahead of the Haitians, who were standing, had been at the border for a couple of years. Voice and Viewpoint had spent time during this waiting period collecting goods and materials and clothing and stuff, which we periodically sent across the border to the people who were waiting there to get into the country. And so these things were blatant acts of discrimination. uh, Trump was calling countries that were poor S countries. And so that was a ultimate frontal attack on people. Now, with this scenario that we have here, we have ended the temporary stay period, basically, and we are able to send all these people back to Haiti. But while on the one hand, uh, the years are passing and the rehabilitation from the earthquake hasn't made any difference. What we have now is no law and order. We had the assassination of the president. We got gangs in control of the country, roaming the streets, taking over. We had the international effort at Kenya at one point was sending troops to Haiti. It turns out that the troops that Kenya sent were insufficient to deal with the gang element that was there. And so now, if you send these people at the expiration of this temporary status that we are canceling back to Haiti, they are going back to a hellish situation that's worse than what they left in the first place. These are things that we need to pay attention to, folks. And sometimes it's very hard because many of our African brothers and sisters, I guess, when they come here, I believe they were told stay away from the American blacks because so many of them don't want to. We try to get them involved. We try to interact. I've worked at doing this for years, and it's like pulling teeth without any kind of tranquilizer or pain relief. They just don't want to be involved. But yet, to the uh, white citizenry of this country, if but for your accent, uh, that you just another black person, and they're not making the distinction. And I find we have a real struggle here. Uh, it's evidence that I remember years ago at the Horace Mann Middle School. Okay, here was a school that, and maybe it still does, because of the Somali community uh, that was nearby. there were a number of different languages spoken in the school. So it was almost impossible to have a parent teachers meeting without a set of interpreters handy. And so there was a cultural thing there. And then on top of that, I remember that the Somali community had their own cultural schools running in the apartment complexes where their people lived after school and on weekends, as the Jewish people did years ago, so that their kids won't lose their connection to their roots and their history. Uh, we were doing some of that with rites of passage 25 years ago. We had men who were taking these young black boys and educating and shaping them in terms of manhood, just as it was done back in the mother country. All of that's just kind of gone down the drain today. That we got everybody with their own iPhone. Everybody is doing their own thing, and nobody really gives a damn about the others. And we know that's not totally true, but it's going to take some work from those of us who know better and see it to reach the others and talk to them and to try to turn it around and make a change.
Well, Dr. Warren, is that, who better to heal ourselves than ourselves? I think that no matter what the narrative is, there are some people that are still trying to reach across the aisle, as I would say, with the African Americans or the Black people in the United States. And then we have those people that might have bought into the false narrative. I think that for moving forward, for me, I always will say that we're stronger together. But I think that we always have to look at the glass as half full instead of half empty, and literally begin to work with those folks that want to reach across. I think some people don't want to reach across the aisle because they don't feel that there's a need for us, or they don't feel like that we're together enough that we can even help each other. But the biggest thing for us is, as we continue to move forward, success breeds success. And at the end of the day, Dr. Warren, you've been doing this for a very long time. No matter how much people say they don't need you, when they get in trouble, they come.
Oh yeah,
And
they
we
call.
want to. But what we're saying is, before we get in trouble, why don't we build an infrastructure that no one will even come for us because we're too strong?
Well, I remember telling the Black Employees Union at UCSD some 25 years ago when they were laying off folks in Hillcrest to switch to independent contractors so they could save on employee benefits and send the money to finish building Thornton in La Jolla. Of course, some people are going to swear that this didn't happen. And so the people that got laid off were ready to protest. And some of them were in good positions, but they still were removed. When they were hired back, they backed off of the protests and were no longer concerned about the people who were out there who were still without jobs. And so this went on for a while. But I remember telling them at one point, I said, I want you to understand that all you have to do is stay Black and stay in San Diego, and your day will come. Okay. And so it might be subtle in some places, it might be quiet, but there are a lot of forces at work in this place that we're not really aware of, but they're aware of us. They're aware that they can still try to create our leaders by giving a few dollars to individuals and propping them up with TV and airtime, and so they look like they represent the new Black hope. And yet, those people are being controlled by the very ones who are giving them the money to do what they're doing. Nothing is more frightful to people than having a people or a nation or a group of people who are not afraid to stand up and assert their rights. If you don't believe that I'm correct, look at how America or how Europeans have dealt with people historically. With the Native Americans, they did not mind dying for what they believe. Those that they are not able to domesticate, if you will, they must exterminate. And so it comes in a number of ways. We've seen the horror stories about the various schools that were created to take the Indian children by force and put them in schools, cut their hair, refuse to have them speak. This happened with Native Americans in Alaska. This happened to such a great extent in Australia that they all had truth commissions going back, trying to look at what can we do to straighten this situation up. The racism will never go away. It will just put on different suits and different clothes. But if we can maintain a desire to consistently take the position that what happens to you happens to me. It's like the situation today, Dr. Thompson, when we were at the YMCA luncheon and Sister Lisa Peyton Harris sang that song, I need you, you need me, you know. We have to get back to understanding that we need each other. And nothing is more frightening than people who need each other coming together for a common cause. Okay. And so we're not coming together today to call names and boycott and all that kind of stuff. We're coming together for survival at this point. And what happens 4 months from now is going to determine the life or death of so many of us on a scale that COVID-19 did. And and so we better learn to vote now, and we better get real serious about it. And if we get serious about the voting right now in 4 months, we can change the Congress, we can change the Senate, we can certainly change the attitude at the White House, because those people down there, their time is limited. And they can talk about Trump running in 28 and all that foolishness that they want to. We already have legislation coming underway to change the Supreme Court, to give them some term limits and make a difference. And these are things that we must learn from the experiences that we're having now and come together with people who are strong enough to make change.
And I think, Dr. Warren, what we have to, again, it's about is the country better off? And I will consistently say you just have to look at what's taking place. Almost every day in the news, I don't know if you see it, but almost every day in the news, we're hearing about mass shootings and gun violence and things of that nature. And it's on an all-time high as never before. I believe that almost every news show starts off a mass shooting here, a mass shooting there. They're getting younger, they're getting more things attached. We're not becoming better, but we're becoming more worse off because of the environment and the culture that our country is starting to breed. And we have to go back and look at and say, what did make America a place that everybody wanted to go to? It looked like there was a place of opportunity, but now we have this thing I consider us, whereas we want everything to go our way, but we don't want to treat people right, even when they come with their best intentions.
Well, let's not take them too far down that road, Dr. Thompson, because what's going on right now is a fulfilling of Bible prophecy. Jesus said that there would be wars and rumors of wars, and he talked about children turning against parents and parents against children. But after he mentioned all these things and earthquakes in diverse places, he says the end is not yet. This is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of sorrow. Okay. And so we are experiencing the beginning of sorrow. We're experiencing people because you didn't teach your children the right and wrong and any godly principles. Now you've raised up an entity that will not be there for you in your old age, and they could care less what happens to you because they happen. They're growing with they're raised with disrespect. They're raised with disrespect. And because the parents want to be friends with their children instead of being parents. And so you and I can see it. I see people with little kids in the store, and they begging them to be quiet and to act right, and the little kid having a temper tantrum. And you and I would have never done that stuff. All the parents had to do was look at us at one time, because you know that backhand was coming. And by the time I got to karate, and I knew what a backhand was because I had met it so many times. You had too. Okay, so we want absolute freedom. And I keep saying that absolute freedom destroys. We must be anchored to something. We must stand for something. And I believe that we are great because we were anchored to God. And today we're getting away from God. We don't believe in Him. We want all kinds of stuff. Churches experiencing losses in enrollment in terms of people going and participating, and people want to call for uh, 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 God save America in prayer when they have crisis like 9/11. But that's not it. Okay. And I want to see Black people who were the foundation of morality in this country, who stood by the word of God to the extent that we survived slavery and Jim Crow and all of these things because we were strong moral people. I want to see us return to that, and it's still not too late.
And with that, Dr. Warren, the whole thing of civility. We used to have much more civility among each other. There was things that we didn't say, and I'm just amazed that before you would never hear a president publicly use profanity, and now it's just an everyday thing from the highest lands, the highest officers. There's just nothing that won't come out of people's mouths now, and there's just and they're creating a culture that our children think that is a part of the language. So everybody's using it. So why not them?
Well, I think that we have to pick our fights. Okay, we know that language is an issue, but a lot of us have to clean up our own language before we start talking about cleaning up somebody else's language. Okay, and there's still too much of that we haven't cleaned up, and so you know. Jesus took the 10 commandments and divided them and came up with two. Okay. The first one being love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and might. And the second one was love thy neighbor as thyself. Because when you got to the second one, love thy neighbor as thyself, well, that covered 5 of the 10 commandments. That was thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. And you just went down the list of those 5 things. And if you love your neighbors yourself, you're not going to do any of those things to your neighbor. Okay. And so we just need to not wait until we're in greater crisis, because with climate control, the crisis is here. The floods, the fires, all these things are happening. And we can't wait until we get hit. Now, all of a sudden, we want to pray and be saved and be holy. Okay. We need to get involved now. And helping our neighbor, helping ourselves. And now's the time to make these things happen.
Yes, Dr. Warren. And as we move forth and we look at what we're facing, again, less than, 3 months away, we're going to have an election. But in the meantime, we need to educate ourselves, because not only are there national elections, state elections, but there are a lot of local elections that are taking place that are going to have a great impact in our city. I look at, I just saw on TV the other night that Streamview is actually going to have a total makeover, helping the flood situation and everything else that nature. But there are a lot of things that are still happening in your local city that should engage you. And if you can get involved locally, you can also get involved state and national.
Well, let's do this. And our time is rapidly running out. We want to start having some discussion sessions in the evening, if you will, where you can ask questions in terms of what the issues are, what the laws are, how things are operating. We're not just talking about voter registration, because we're not the getting you to register to vote is moving into one of those 3 things that I mentioned. You might not have enough money to stop their profits, but if you generate bad publicity and support people that vote against the interests of the folks who are doing the most harm and damage to us, then you will have their attention. Okay. Let us not forget what happened in terms of Birmingham and how that boycott was a tremendous sacrifice. 380 days or whatever it was, this whole thing went on that led to all started because Ms. Parks was locked up and they didn't want Black people to sit where they wanted to on the bus. Let's not forget the lunch counter protests, how they threw stuff on the kids sitting there, but we were trained to endure without fighting back, which just made it worse. Let us not forget, the massacres that have taken place, Oklahoma and Rosewood, and all these things where our people have died because folks were intimidated or threatened by who we are and what we might do. Let us not get so comfortable now that we just decide we have arrived. And so now we are drinking buddies with, James Q, uh, Jim Crow, James Crow Esquire, and he's wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase, like many of you, but he's still got his hood and his sheet in the briefcase and not books and papers. So let's just pay attention. um, the paper is there to be of help. GOD Radio is here. Uh, if we have a call for more discussions, if we have a call to talk about the issues that you see, if you don't understand something, don't write yourself off like you're ignorant. That go find the answers, ask for the answers. You know, talk to people who can help. That's how we get better. If you do the same thing you've already done, you're gonna get the same results, and that's stupidity.
Yes, Dr. Warren. Well, we're at the end of our show today. Just want to leave you all with a challenge. And the number one challenge is to open up dialogue, be a part of conversation. Number two is log in and connect with the apps of both GOD Radio and the Voice and Viewpoint. Make sure that you realize that you can look at the Voice and Viewpoint free of charge online each and every day. It'll be out tomorrow. And also, there's still newsstands and papers that are still available. Dr. Warren, I'm not for sure. Do you still send out the subscription, mail out subscriptions anymore?
Oh yeah, we still mail out. There are people who subscribe that want the hard copy of the paper. You know, no matter how much something is put on social media, that goes away. But they want to have that picture that
Yeah.
they can save and show and pass around. And so we still have people across the country subscribing and getting the paper by mail,
Yeah.
even though it's online.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about that is that you don't have to go pick it up. You subscribe, and the subscription cost is per year is very minimal.
It's minimal because there's a special rate if you're a senior. It
Uh,
doesn't cost that much. And then you remember the whole paper is online. So many times people just do subscription because they want to save a hard copy of whatever it is that they're looking at.
Yeah. So one of the things that we want to encourage people to do, let's get involved, let's get active, let's continue to have these dialogues. And if you have a hot topic that you would like us to discuss on From the Desk of the Editor, send it to us, and your topic can be discussed right here. And Dr. Warren, you are also still accepting letters to the editor.
All the time. We
Yeah.
want your comments. And plus, we don't just publish the paper, but we also do news bites and newsletter. We're putting stuff out all during the week, every day. There's information. And so all you have to do is just go on social media. We're on TikTok. We're on every social platform.
Well, with that being said, you all have a wonderful evening. This is From the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. Be blessed.